Motivate, 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 get money, motivate, 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 motivate.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. I come to you with a heavy heart. This I know as most of you are as well, for everything that's been happening in our country for years and years and years when it comes to black people and racial injustice. The more I live life, the more and more life seems like a game to me. And when playing a game, oftentimes you have teams playing against each other. And during difficult times like this, it's important for us to establish what team we're on. Are we going to be on the good people team that wants a just, fair, and equitable society? Or are we going to be on the bad people team that want to keep things the same? So I'm hoping that your presence here today at this rally means that you're part of the good team. So I want us to consider this a pep rally. When I was playing football at Newberry High School, and one of the most memorable games I remember was when we played Union High School back in 2002. And we won that game. Before that game, we had a huge pep rally. And it got us ready for that game. So I want us today, I want us to consider this your pep rally, to get fired up, to get ready to go, to get knowledgeable, to educate yourself, to understand each other's experience, so we can go fight this game of institutionalized racism and we can win. Get fired up, get ready to go. Reminded that we're here due to the racial injustice that happened with Mr. George Floyd in Minneapolis. But I would be remiss if I stand before you and not tell my story of what happened when I was 14 years old. I just got done playing a JV baseball game at Newberry High School, and I went to go see my sister play softball at Brooklyn Casey High School. And as I'm sitting there on the bleachers watching my sister play, a police car pulled up beside the bleacher I'm sitting on, sirens blasting, saying, "Don't move, don't move." And in my 14-year-old mind head, I'm thinking, ooh, somebody in trouble? But I know it wasn't me because I hadn't did anything. But before I knew, I was snatched off that bleacher. And put on the hood of that car. And I'm struggling, I'm asking, why you, what's going on? Why you grab me? And the police officer responded. He said, "If you move again, I'll blow your head off." Luckily, my father, Mr. Larry Kinard, was there. And he came rushing to my assistance. And he asked the police officer, he told him, "Get your hands off my D-son. That's a straight A student. That's a baseball player." But at that time, none of that didn't matter. The police officer expressed that I fit the description of somebody who robbed a store. Luckily, when him and my dad was getting a heated argument, my dad kind of Billy bumped him off of me. And as the police officer went to draw his gun, two undercover cops came out of nowhere and said, "He's not the one, he's not the one." Thank God for those undercover police officers. Because if it would not have been for them and my father, instead of saying hashtag George Floyd in 2001, we could have had a hashtag Jamal Kinard. Or we could have had a hashtag Larry Kinard. Now, for those who've been in Newberry County who know my father, he's a stand-up guy. Imagine Newberry County without Larry Kinard today. I want you to imagine that. Imagine Newberry County without your father, or without that mentor. Just so happened to be the one who fit the description of somebody who robbed a store. So my dad asked him, he said, what was the description? He said somebody had a dark coat on and a dark hat. And my daddy said, well, dog, did you look at his pants? I still had my baseball pants on, but I still fit the description. So we gotta ask ourselves, how did that happen? Why did that happen? And why does that continue to happen? And now the tough thing is how we deal with racism today. A lot of people believe that we're in a post-racial society. that race is no longer a factor because we had a black president, right? I think that some people think that cured it all, but it didn't. So now we believe that we can just be colorblind when approaching racial issues. But we know that not to be true as either. But the problem with that is our country is race is the number one predictor of outcome. So it's one thing for us to have better relations with each other, but what about our outcomes? What are outcomes, Jamal? 1 in 3 black men will have an encounter with a police officer in his life, compared to 1 in 16 white men. That's an outcome. There are more black women with PhDs have worse birth outcomes than white women with GEDs. That's the outcome. 1 in 3 black men will go to jail at some time in their life, compared to 1 in 22 white men. So it's one thing for you to shake our hand and say that you're with us, but we have to be fighting this thing on a systemic level to really bring the change. And when we believe to think that we live in a post-racial society, the danger is that people will not attempt to solve a problem that they do not believe exists. So we must first acknowledge that we have a problem, so we can put forth the most effort in order to solve that problem. And it's critical that we understand that we're dealing with this thing called structural and systematic racism. And to help you understand how we're dealing with this, I'm gonna bring forth a metaphor to you today. Let's say all of us are going fishing or enjoying a day out at Lake Murray. And as we're out there having a good time, we notice one fish belly up dead on the bank. And we say to ourselves, man, I wonder what happened to that fish. Did a disgruntled fisherman throw that fish back and they didn't want it? Did it get caught up in some fishing equipment? Or you may ask some deeper question. Was that fish wearing a fish hoodie? Was that fish walking in the wrong fish neighborhood? Did that fish not read the right fish books? Did that fish grow up in a one fish parent household? But we'll keep moving down that bank and we'll go on with our walk. But say we go 10 more miles down that bank and we see 10,000 fish belly up dead. We no longer asking what happened to those fish. We're not asking, we're saying to ourselves that something got to be wrong with the water. And I'm telling you today, y'all, something is terribly wrong with the water. Something is terribly wrong with the water. And what water am I speaking about? I'm speaking about our systems that we encounter. Sometimes we pick on the law enforcement system, but there's a whole lot more systems out there that's doing just as bad as we're. It's not worse than some of our police departments and sheriff departments across our country. And we got to be strategic in calling them out. So in order for these problems to be studied and be determined, I have 4 primary observations that I want you all to consider. Racial disparities occur in every system across this country. But the problem is we have different names for these disparities. In education, we call it the achievement gap. And in law courts and system, we call it disproportionate minority contact. In the healthcare system, we call it healthcare disparities. But we don't realize that we all trying to solve the same problem because we calling it something different. We got to be true and call it what it is, systemic racism, so that we can realize we're all fighting this battle together. Number 2, social economic status cannot explain the outcomes. Like I said, more black women who have advanced degrees are having worse birth outcomes than white women with GEDs. So you can't say it's about class. My mother experienced a heart attack last May and went to Newberry County Hospital. They didn't put her on the EKG machine. They said, oh, you just having some spasms, and sent her home. Luckily, she had the sense to go get a second opinion. And they saw that she was having a heart attack and rushed her into surgery. There's no way a 58-year-old white woman that comes to Newberry County Hospital is going to be sent home without an EKG machine. There's no way that's going to happen. But that's a systemic thing. I'm not pointing the blame at the other person. Again, we got to study the lakes. There's a lake that caused that to happen, not a person. And we got to study that. Number 3, people who are vulnerable for many reasons, but they're at risk when they come into contact with our systems. Any white man out here, if me and you are the same age, and we committed the same crime and have the same social economic background, I wonder, everybody here, who would you put your money on to have the better outcome in our law enforcement system? And that's crazy because we know that. Everywhere I go, we ask that question, it's the same answer. But we would say that we have a colorblind society. We got to study those lakes. Lastly, we know that we're dealing with something that is based on race. But what we endeavor to do is solve a race-based problem with race-neutral solutions. And when we do that, we only widen the gap. So to our white allies that are here today, thank you. To our black communities, thank you for persevering. To our black communities, thank you for persevering, because I'm just like you, I'm tired. My grandma say, don't call this, baby, I'm tired. But when she really exhausted, she say, I'm tired. We tired. We tired. And for you to understand some of the 5 major problems that Black America is dealing with. Number 1, mass incarceration, miseducation, gentrification, access to wealth and wealth building opportunities, and police brutality. So if you're going to be on the team with us, these are the 5 areas that we have to put forth race-based solutions if we're going to have a race-based outcome. All right? Thus, we need to have an analysis and plan that considers race in all these areas. Because of the analysis that includes race, we have a different intervention than one that does not. I want you to repeat after me. Short-term responsive.
Short-term responsive.
Long-term strategic.
Long-term strategic.
Short-term, we need to do some things on a program level to make some change happen. Long-term, we got to stay steadfast so we can institutionalize these changes. Short-term, which is what we want to do. We want to learn more about qualified immunity. I challenge everybody to go research that term, qualified immunity. Because that's the police policy, that's the policy that's in place that allows it, that makes it so difficult to sue police officers when they do crimes like this. And it holds them to a different standard. So we need to review that and reform that policy if you're going to make some change happen. Number 2, we got to get rid of fear-based training. And we got to demilitarize the police, because that should not be the first tactic when you're coming in contact with somebody who may have committed a crime. Get rid of fear-based training. Number 3, we got to have racial equity training come to our law enforcement officers and all our other systems. And I said race equity training, not diversity and inclusion. Racial equity training. And I'm going to be one to bring that in because I'm a trainer for the Racial Equity Institute. Number 4, we need a civic leadership academy. We need to learn how these systems work on the county level and the city level. Once we are more informed, we can make more informed decisions which lead to better outcomes. Number 5, we no longer are accepting charity in the black community. We want contracts over charity. No longer will a basketball game or a backpack program be the all that we get from you all, be all that we ask for. But we need contracts that give out wealth building opportunities for our communities and for black-owned business. And the reason I bring it up because FDR, when he rolled out the New Deal, and white men was on the street poor and couldn't work, he didn't say, here's a mentor program, did he? He said, here are contracts to build a Hoover Dam. Here are contracts to build a Lincoln Tunnel. Here are contracts to build our airport systems in our cities in our America. We need those same contractual opportunities and wealth building opportunities for our people of color and our black community. Lastly, I ask you to organize inside and outside of our systems, especially on the grassroots and community level. A lot of people ask, what can you do? If you work in our system, you can organize with your fellow colleagues and make sure the change is happening inside your systems. Inside of our communities, we need community leaders to step up and organize ourselves so that we can get grant funds directly to our communities to see the change you want to have happen. And when we do that, we make power visible, because when power is invisible, racism thrive. So I'm asking you today, so let's make power visible so that we can make history now and we can make America think together. That's my time. Thank you. Thank you.